Oh man. I see.
Nightly, Sunday, 6 o'clock, we host a little old show. It's called Dangerous Thoughts, where I rock the mic and Tyson talks the talk. We say what we want. It might give you a shock, but it's not shock radio. It's more than that. It's about people thinking and talking right back. We keep the mic open, everyone reports. We got different opinions on the floor. It's called Dangerous Thoughts, Sundays at 6 p.m. The subscript pirate might let you in to express your mind and get it off your chest. It's called Dangerous Thoughts. Tune in Sundays at 6.
Hey, welcome to Dangerous Thoughts, Sundays at 6. I'm Manu Reme, and this is your co-host, Tyson Strasberg. Just to let everybody know, I've been drinking a little bit tonight, so be prepared for whatever may happen. It's always a dangerous thing when I imbibe. Is imbibe a word, Tyson?
Imbibe is a word, yes. One that I'm familiar with.
That's good. So we're both imbibing, and tonight we have a special show tonight. One, because I love the topic. We're going to talk about the Forever War, and we're going to talk about corruption in the USA, which I like to call under surveillance always. What do you think? What do you think? Is that a good dad joke? Yeah. All right. Cool.
Fantastic dad joke.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about the real history of like some of the and let me say first and foremost, I'm not proud to be an American. I wouldn't go that far, but I do think this country does a lot of things right. There are a lot of things that I've been lucky to be born in this country. So as much shit as I talk about the country tonight, don't put me on the terrorist list because I'm not dangerous to the country. I might educate people, or at least have smart people come on my show to educate people, which is probably more terrifying to them than anything else, I would assume. But anyway, we're going to talk about America. Talk about America. Tyson, what do you think? What do you think that we do wrong? Is there anything about America as far as just anything? What do you think
that we do wrong? Oh,
yeah,
nothing like setting me up with a loaded question, right? I think that American history has arced to more righteous place. I think we started as a slave country. We started with a lot of things that were far less than perfect.
Just use the words. We started with genocide. We started with all. I mean,
this land was already populated by Native Americans, and we did. So I think it's pretty awful. But I think we've arced the right way. What I am seeing though in the last 10 years or so is what disturbs me. It feels like we're slipping back the other direction, right? Like we've always been a little polarized, center left, center right, Republican, Democrat, independent, but I feel like that gap is growing wider and wider and wider. And you no longer, before it was considered a good thing if a Republican worked across the aisle with a Democrat or vice versa. Today, that's seen as sacrilege. Being bipartisan used to be a good word. Bipartisan used to be a good word.
Yeah,
long time ago.
Remember that? I'm 45 and I don't even remember that.
Yeah, now if you reach across the aisle, you're a traitor. So we're getting more and more and more polarized, and people are dehumanizing. When was the last time, like Gore got the popular vote, went off and he challenged in court, kind of like Trump did, but afterwards, the Supreme Court ruled in Bush's favor. Gore, he conceded. Nobody ransacked the Capitol. It was different.
I liked Gore. Gore was great.
I did too.
he was sort of like a snotty elitist. Like I think the last president that we had that was sort of a decent human being was Eisenhower, and then probably Kennedy. They were still snobby elitists, but they had some good ideas, and they cared about the American people, I think. I don't think anybody since has necessarily. But Gore, I don't know, he was kind of fun because he cared about the environment. I think that's the only reason I liked Gore, was he was like, oh, we need to do something about this. And he called when they dug down into the ice core and they found global warming, like that was like 35 years ago or something when they first announced it, 40 years ago or something. 35? I don't know.
Maybe when it became popular, but the idea of global warming is not new. I mean, we've been pumping chemicals into the atmosphere for decades, and there have been people that have warned even earlier on, but it's been, you could look up old newspaper articles and things like this. But I think Gore brought popularity to it. He brought attention to it. He brought
the what is it? Movie with DiCaprio was in that movie, or he was talking about.
Al Gore was in Futurama. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Al Gore was a nice guy. He seemed like a nice guy. He should have won. George was fun. He was, that sort of that. He was fun. He was only fun, but he wasn't fun because in the long run, him and Cheney knocked down those towers and got us into a treasonous war, and killed a bunch of American people and genocide probably on the Iraq and Afghanistan front. And what trips me out is that Bush and Bush's father can get away with all that shit, but then Trump, didn't quite do the same. We should be hanging those guys. I don't understand why. I mean, I do understand why we're hanging Trump, but why not those guys too, or at least the son?
I don't know. And all this ado about Hunter Biden, but
Hunter is a partier, right? Does he just?
I mean, what? Well, there may have been some. Well, no, there may have been some financial transactions that were unseemly. But that said, I mean, look at Trump's stepson, Ivanka's husband. What's his name? I mean, he's working with the Saudis. He's doing all this corrupt stuff. Nobody ever talks about him. Well,
let's bring on our expert tonight. Corin Nemec has been kind enough to join us.
Corin Nemec.
And the reason that Corin came on the show is, one, he's a very nice guy. I met him in Tampa, Florida, at a Star Trek con or sci-fi convention. And then I saw him on some news clip talking about the Forever War and talking about the corruption in American history, as far as like the Fed and the first time they started making us pay income tax, etc. And he had a lot of good information, so I thought, why not bring on an expert tonight?
I'm no expert.
Well, let's start with how is Ron DeSantis doing?
Listen, I judge my surroundings specifically on what my locale is like. Is it safe? Is it clean? Are the grocery stores full? Can I leave my car unlocked when I go into the grocery store? Can I walk around anywhere I want to at nighttime and not worry about anything? All the answers to those questions where I currently live are yes. I can do all of those things without even batting an eye. And that's all I'm concerned with. If somebody was running the show and things were different than that, like if I felt like my life was in peril, I'd be very concerned. So I have no concern with whoever is in control of the local mayoral seat for this particular city that I'm in on the coast, or whatever is going on in the government as on a state level. Whatever they're doing, it's safe to go outside.
That's nice. Good. Yeah, that's nice. I'm in Colorado Springs right now, and I leave my car at the grocery store bumping hip hop to like the top level and just go in and shop and leave it rocking, and I come out. So yeah.
Well, that's actually smart. It's kind of a deterrent. Yeah. It's so suspicious. There's just something so wrong with it. It's like, is that car empty and bumping hip hop? Nah, man, I ain't even going close to that thing.
I've seen Bait Car too many times. I'm not falling for that.
Yeah, they'll expect it to turn into a transformer, to transform into Bumblebee or something.
I leave a bunch of cash in my right in my dash there. You know.
Well, I know
Okay,
from
so let's
traveling
talk
in
about
third
this.
world countries, in some of the more dangerous places, although I've never been robbed, I did always follow by the prerequisite of keep the majority of your money in your underwear or your sock or something like that, and you keep some. You just got jacked money in your pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to keep the money in the sock when I went down to like Mexico or Tijuana to party, but it's gotten nicer down there too. Truthfully,
Well,
Does it
no, you
work
keep it
on
in your
a
underwear, and then you keep it in your underwear, and then it gives the illusion you've got more manhood in
Well,
addition
it's
to having
always
saved
it's
money.
always damp too when you spend it. So there's always that question of, did this guy just come from the beach, or
was
is
he
did he
swimming?
come from a pool party? Like, this guy must be swinging.
Or did he just come? What is this?
I don't
Yes.
know what is wrong with this money. Where did,
Well, it's evil no
don't
matter
put it
what you do.
under don't put it under a black light.
So recently, I saw this video on Twitter, and it was this guy showing our $100 bill, and on the $100 bill, there are some creepy things. There's like 3 gray aliens hidden in our $100 bill, and not the kind of gray aliens that you look at and you go, "Oh yeah, that could be a gray alien if I went Dutch or I turned the camera sideways." Like literal
Yeah, I've
fuck
seen that.
gray.
I've seen some of them. I mean, I've known a lot. I've known for a long time about the hidden stuff on the dollar bill, especially, and then some of the other bills have different forms, different things that appear when you fold them. It's almost like origami of the occult, you know.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
And it is interesting because some of the bills, a whole series of them that came out. I think it was either just before, during, or just after 9/11. All of the bills, when you fold the back of them, all look like, and then when you line them up from
The
the,
tower's
yeah,
collapsing.
yeah, from the 5 to the 50 or whatever, it looks like, and it's, listen, I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't fold the bills that way. I didn't draw the drawings that way so that when you fold them, they happen to look like that. So no one can call me, a conspiracy theorist here. I'm just saying that was weird. But on the
Yeah,
dollar bill, there is the the owl of Athena, or the, kind of the Bohemian Grove owl that's up there.
Moloch.
And well, yeah, you could call it more like the owl with it. That really goes into the ancient Druids, where Molech really, from my research on it, stems out of the ancient Druidic priests uh, the forests of northern Europe, and the areas that we now call like Bulgaria or Czechoslovakia, or because Bohemia was one of the last holdouts for a lot of those cultures. But it
Well,
You
was,
know, if you
but
fold a
anyway.
$1 bill right, you can turn George Washington into a mushroom.
into a mushroom. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
is it a really misshapen penis?
Or yeah, it could be a penis as well,
It's a
but it
very good question.
looks more like a mushroom than a penis.
Every single time I watched Star Wars and I saw Darth Vader, I swear to God that helmet was based on something I've seen in nature.
Yeah, yeah, Darth helmet. I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
Yeah, may the
So
Schwartz be with you.
yes, I love that. I love that movie. I really do. But okay, let's talk about some real shit. So when I saw you on this news broadcast and you were talking about some of the history of the Forever War, I've always felt like, as an American, and I was going to ask you this question, I always felt like, as an American, that I have some responsibility for all the wars and all the death that that our country has participated in. That I have something to do with that, sort of like if you were a Nazi in World War II, right? And you have some responsibility for what your government did. And I feel like America is as long as I've been alive, has been in a war of one kind or another. Why do you think that is, Corin? And you agree with that?
Well, one, when I look at it, I look at, which America are we talking about? Are we talking about the United States of America Incorporated?
Yes.
Are we talking about the actual America where we think we live? Because there's the way that it's structured legally is that we basically get conned into accepting this alternate identification called our straw man, which is used in the Federal Reserve basically like as an account for our labor, and tracks us, and that's on our social security number is the account number for that straw man, and birth certificates are the chattel paper which sells us into the slave system, which is the monetary system ran by the Federal Reserve Bank. And that all comes after the Federal Reserve Bank. So there's two different Americas. There was the America that was the America before the privatization of the currency in 1913, and the America that had just torn itself apart to stay together after the Civil War, and that and presidents, McKinley was shot, Garfield was shot. There was other assassinations going on, and every single one of those had to do with banking and bank charters, and trying to and a whole political movement within the U.S. trying to stave off the international banksters from sneaking in and setting up shop here in the U.S., and thus taking over the country, because their scheme after America, won the Revolutionary War. Some people think, well, maybe the UK, maybe Great Britain just packed up and hightailed it out of there, never to try and take it over again. But then you have to assume what is Great Britain controlled by, and that's the aristocracy, as they call it there, not the oligarchy, but it's the same difference. But and the banking aristocracy, number one, and that's like the East India Trading Company, the Dutch East India Company. These were which became the Lloyds of London, and some of the big banks now that exist. But
I always tell people that when the Queen was alive, I always tell people that the Queen has no power, they would say, and I would be like, "Are you kidding me? She's one of the most powerful people on the planet."
What's interesting is because that has to do with that, with the 1 square mile city of London, the banking center of London, which is its own city and has its own mayor. And oddly enough, that mayor only answers to the royal family and whoever's in charge at the time. They don't answer to,
We have one in New York and one in DC too.
We have Washington DC. Washington DC is its own world, kind of like Vatican City is as well.
Yeah.
New York doesn't have that same. It doesn't have that same kind of function where it exists, where an area of it exists outside of the natural law around it. Like where the District of Columbia isn't even a part of America. Like, what is that? Like, it has its own constitution. What's going on? You know what I mean? They have,
in order for it to be neutral.
Stuff. Yeah, they got some really creepy New Age religious stuff downtown.
I do have a question for you, Corin. With regard to the Fed in 1913. 1913 was the Fed, but we were still on the silver standard, gold standard. We still had, the dollar was backed up by something of value, something tangible.
Yeah, but when that
went away, that went away, now it's on the full faith and whatever of the U.S. government. What stops U.S. government from just printing more? I mean, if it's not backed by anything.
Well, here's the thing. Well, interesting on that subject. When we look back at the gold and the silver standard that it was on, that wasn't the Federal Reserve's gold and silver that was backing that. That was the promise that if America ever defaulted on these loans to these international banksters, that they would get our gold and silver should we default. So when Nixon took us off the gold standard, did he take the gold out of their hands so that when the Federal Reserve Bank does default, they can't come and collect our gold?
I was always.
Is there any gold in Fort Knox?
Is there any gold in Fort Knox? Move, going off the silver standard could have been a checkmate move to the Federal Reserve at that time. And if you look at it in that way, because they're going, listen, these guys are running roughshod over us. They're just spending money like drunken sailors. And looking down the road here, boy, we're going to owe them a lot of money at some point in time. Let's get the silver off this. And then later on, they're like, oh my God, they can still get our gold. If this thing tanks, they're going to come and take all our gold. I think maybe we should maybe pull the gold off of this standard too. And then you ended up with the petrodollar, which obviously was remarkable up until recent times. It worked wonders in falsely propping up a completely valueless currency with nothing backing it except for the the gross national product and the financial slave system and taxation system of the U.S.
The full
Yeah.
faith
So
and backing
hold
of
on.
the U.S.
Yeah.
government.
So hold on. We're talking ahead of most people because I am a sheep.
Yep.
I don't know a whole lot about this. I know I know a little. You know, I'm no expert, but I think we're talking ahead of people. So let's take this one step at a time. The Fed takes over and in 1917 or 1913?
1913.
1913.
It was a trick. It was really tricky because December 23rd is when they slithered in. The politicians slithered in the dead of night, basically when everybody else was at home with their families celebrating Christmas, and they voted the Federal Reserve Act in, and then it was signed into law by Woodrow Wilson, and what a traitor that guy was, you know.
Yeah.
And I know, if I am correct, at some point in his dotage, he did say that was the worst mistake he ever made, was selling the soul of America to the banksters. But
So he was tricked. You think he was tricked?
I think that just like today, compromise is the means and methods of control. You know, I think that even back then, when you look at Tammany Hall and you look at the politics of old times, you know, that yes, they kept a tight lid on people's personal lives and all of that, and the media was fierce back then. I mean, the media was actually really fierce. There was a lot of mudslinging going on in politics all throughout that time, even far worse than what you get today. Some of the names they used to call each other were hilarious. I can't remember any right offhand, but some of them were like so hilarious. But actually, were, you know, like you posh water scum bucket, and you know, like today you'd be like, God, what is that? What is a posh water scum bucket or something?
Posh water scallywag.
Like, how dare you? You know, we shall duel. But anyway, it was just as wild. But I think that the way I look at it is that the fight never really ended from a monetary standpoint, because it was understood, and this goes into Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati and the understanding that you don't have to take over a country by force. All you have to get them to do is take loans from you that they can't afford to pay back. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
so that's the main thing, and that was the first landing of the British banking system, the British banking cartel in America again in 1913. That was their beachhead, and now they've pretty much taken over the whole system.
Okay, so you think it was like Rothschild money back then that got those congressmen to do that late night session and pass the Federal Reserve?
I mean, there's other families besides them. They're the first ones that popped to mind, you know, for most everybody. But you know, they're all incestuous, mind you. You know, all of those families all across Europe.
J.P. Morgan, I'm sure, was involved.
Oh, J.P. Morgan, yeah, we know the names, but so all the robber baron names, but still. So what do you think those first few years after they passed the income tax law and established the Fed, how much later did income tax come? Does anybody know?
Well, I don't remember right offhand, but I think it came in during the time period of the rebuilding, or during the under FDR, his New Deal.
Really, we didn't pay,
because everybody was working for the federal. The way that the trick works is that by law, the only part, as this is my understanding of it, and mind you, I'm not like a lawyer or anything, but by law, the only person who is legally bound to paying income tax is somebody who is an employee of the federal government itself, not an American citizen, and so or somebody who accepts benefits from the federal government. So once they first came in and everybody's doing their thing and everything seems perfectly normal, well, what was perfectly normal about immediately ramping up and going into World War I? Within three to 4 years of the takeover of the banking system, that was their first charge at getting us into a level of debt that we won't be able to get out of. So those wars, create a lot of money for a lot of the wealthy class, the military industrial complex and all of that, but it creates a lot of debt for the country and the people of the country. And the more debt there is, the more people become enslaved to that debt in some way, shape, or form. But at least at that time, the states, there was no federal income tax, and the states were the only place you were dealing with any kind of taxation. And you didn't even have property taxes back then. And so when you owned your property, you owned your property.
You actually owned it? Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
so nice.
It's like,
Well, back in the day, we didn't
change all that. But we can get into that. That's a whole different a can of worms is all the property things and all that, because in reality, people think that we're in this really free society, but we're not. It's already a communist state, because if you don't pay your property, if you own your house outright and you don't pay your property taxes, what happens to your property? You know what I'm saying? You have to get a special license to drive your car. And again, all these licenses and all these bills, everything, it all has your name in all capital letters. And that's a legal fiction. It's something that has to do with the Uniform Commercial Code. You can read about it in Black Law Dictionary. The only time you ever use all capital letters in a name is signifying a corporation. So a non-entity, not a non-living being. And so when we've been corporatized, by the system, and we've agreed to it. So during the New Deal, when everybody was working for the federal government, it allowed them to start issuing these Social Security cards, because they were going to hold some of your portion of your money like a union does and keep it out there, for you later on down the road and all of that, And
so
then,
the trick was, we've got a cushy government job for you, building this infrastructure. We've got a bunch of money we're spending on it. Come work at this awesome job and we'll withhold a little bit of your paycheck. Is that when that started?
That's when it starts really ramping up. That's when it really starts ramping up, and then through a lot of legal machinations and propaganda, they were able to sell this whole thing to a whole host of people, and then pretty soon it became part of the system. That when you're born, you get your birth certificate. That's your chattel paper. Before birth certificates were given to people, they were only used for animals in the stock market. They were used when you went to the stock market with all of your chattel paper to show how many cows you had for sale back in Kansas. You can't bring all your cows to the stock market. You bring their birth certificates and then you show them, and then they say, this is how much these cows are worth. And therefore our chattel paper, our birth certificates, become the issuing bond or security bond to the bank, saying that this person will work off the debt that the government has taken on in their name.
And we've all seen actually, I was talking to Subscript Pirate, my producer, earlier, and he was talking to me about an old cartoon. He said, actually, it was a rather new cartoon of this wolf walking along, and it says, I'm a human being.
It's a meme.
It's a meme. Okay. I go to work and I pay my taxes, right?
Yeah.
And we all feel like that, right? We're humans. We go to work and we pay.
We don't know that there was we have no memory in our lifetimes, in our generations, in several generations. There's no actual memory of what life was like without the system. And there was people that had the memory of that. And that's also why they push, the forever wars, because all these wars destroy generations. The ones that do survive the meat grinder come back all messed up. They're no longer really, they're all haunted by it. The stuff they had to do, the stuff that was done to them, whatever else. And then they keep churning those out. So it goes World War I, boom. A decade and a half, 2 decades later, boom, we're into World War II. And then another 8-10 years later, Korea, another 8-10 years later, Vietnam, another 8, if you look at it, these decades of just
Iraq, Afghanistan, blah, blah, blah.
And that's just a continued attack on our youth, because they're the ones sent off to war. So we don't get a fully developed youth coming out of an American culture anymore, because they're constantly being, sent off to war, or having this war going on, or having to be torn in their minds about, should I be supporting this? Should I not be supporting this? I want to be American. I want to support this. But in truth, there's almost every single war could have been avoided. And the outcome could have been changed. And that includes, opportunities to have been able to avoid World War II and the Holocaust.
Yeah,
And-
not having either of those things occurred.
in
There was
1990
pressure, there was political pressure, and financial pressure globally at that time that was forcing the Nazi the National Socialists' hand militarily. Is similar to how we're poking the bear with Russia and Ukraine.
Let's take that connection.
You can only, and oddly enough, Poland is added again, because Poland was really where the first spark started, which started off World War II in at least in Europe was, but
from what I understand, we knew, or not we knew, but the president knew that the strike on
Pearl Harbor
was going to happen.
Yeah, they had already cracked the Japanese code. They were well aware of the fact that they were planning something. They weren't sure, exactly that, but they knew that during some block of time, maybe it wasn't necessarily that exact day or whatever, but they knew and that's why the ships that were new, all the new ships that they had in harbor, miraculously, a week before the planes came, all went out to sea. And just all of their old ships and the stuff that they didn't really care about too much, and whatever else was all left behind,
And speaking of something more, let me make this point, because this is interesting stuff. I looked this up before the show, and in 1941, World War II, it was the last time that Congress actually voted to go to war.
Yes.
Every war since has been
police action, basically a military police action, essentially.
Completely bogus, either wrapped up in a presidential decree or a like the Ukraine. We're just giving them arms and we're just giving them some help, and
one thing it brings into question, like the executive orders and this power that the executive office seems to have here, that really seems kind of foreign to how we assume it. Like how have we been being taken into all these wars without congressional approval? How have they been able to institute a draft in Vietnam?
It's not a law without Congress. It's period. It's not a law without Congress.
But I'm just saying is that factor in, and I'm not sure if this is the case or not, but I have a suspicion it is that because of the corporate fiction that they have this much control over the citizens of the United States of America Incorporated as their straw man, their all capital letters, corporate identification, that they have complete and total control over, because they own you. They own your chattel paper. They own your social security card. They own your property. They own your car. They own everything. They own your passport. They own our asses. So, is that why the president is able to do this? Because we're not really in America? We're in a corporate fiction.
I have a question. I've been
over America. You know what I'm saying?
Sitting on. I have
Go
a
ahead.
question I've been sitting on.
Go ahead.
And that gets into the Uniform Commercial Code. There's a great book called "Cracking the Code" that breaks the whole thing down. It's an absolutely phenomenal book, and it actually was a workbook on how to free yourself from the system. All the paperwork you have to do, all the filings you have to do, being able to get your real birth certificate, being able to own. There's even ways you can get your act, because your car, you get your title, but it's not the real title. The title is still held by the car company that manufactured it.
Yeah.
So you have to get it from Ford. You have to get it you have to request it, and they'll be like, no, we don't really want to give it to you, because if they give it to you, then you don't need a driver's license to drive it, because it's your car. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that are wild.
You remember the author? Cracking the Code? I'd love to read it.
Cracking the Code. It's very difficult to get. It's been out of print for quite some time, but I have a copy.
Tyson, go ahead. What were you thinking?
One thing in 1990, and I can't believe he was able to do this, but Oliver Stone put out a movie called JFK. And to me, I felt like that was a huge peek behind the curtain. And it surprised me that the federal government didn't shut down that movie, didn't say, whoa, you're putting a little too much light and you're getting a little too close to the truth here, buddy. Because they covered a lot of the stuff we're talking about. There's that meeting with Mr. X where he talks about, no war, no money. The purpose of the United States, or the purpose of any country, its authority over its people is in its war power. It goes on and on.
I have authority over my people. That's all I have left in this country is authority over my people.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would think that I think sometimes that when you look at that and you think, oh my God, how'd they let him get away with this and all of that? But I think that psychologically, especially people at the CIA who, they would understand that the psychological phenomenon of it coming out would actually be a bit of a closure for a lot of people.
Hey,
They'd feel
man.
like, oh, I was right. And then they'd move on with life and nothing would ever
Yeah.
happen from it.
Yeah, that's cool. So we're both actors. This is a little bit off topic, but with the actors strike, I'm hearing nobody talk about the issue that I find the most important, which is, hey, we're going to stop working for the corporate agenda. We don't want to work on movies anymore that are funded by CIA money, funded by Black Ops money, funded by with the war machine money.
Right.
Nobody's talking about that shit at all. It's just fair wages and all the other issues. But I don't hear anybody saying like, hey, we don't want the powers that be running the propaganda machine the way they do anymore. And the artists are not going to make that bullshit for you anymore. We're not going to put a glaring American flag behind Spider-Man when he sweeps across the city in order to get kids to sign up for the army or the armed forces. Like, the little things that they do, the little subliminal things when you cross corporate elite and
Right.
the American corporation with movies and TV. I don't
Oh,
hear
even
any.
cartoons back in the 40s and 50s. Remember some of the Bugs Bunny cartoons that were very propagandist and very, patriotic and war themed. Even Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes. There were a lot of them. If you take a look at some of the war.
Yeah, the first guys that ran NBC, CBS, they were all propaganda war guys from World War II and etc. You can look it
Right.
up. What else I wanted to chat about? So let's get on to how we ended up in this position in the Ukraine. Can you tie those knots together?
Well, the Ukraine, from at least what limited research that I have done on it, because there's so many things to read about and so many things to learn about. But I would say that it's obviously been one of the most corrupt countries for decades. I mean, even probably going back to the Cold War, it was a hot spot. It was also it was pro-Nazi during World War II and was a hotbed for Nazism. And the Cossack Brigade, when they went through there with the Russians, they were really, really brutal. The Cossack Brigade was kind of the mercenary brigade of the Russian army during World War II, and they didn't have any kind of etiquette. The actual Russian army, the standing army during World War II, from most of what I've been able to read about, were extremely by the book, especially with how they dealt with people when they conquered a city or took it over or captured prisoners of war. They were extremely by the book, much like how we assume the Americans were during World War I and II, But the Cossack Brigade did not behave that way at all, and they went through the Ukraine with an absolute vengeance and raped, pillaged, and murdered their way all the way across that country. Which obviously there would be a lot of blame and hatred and vehemence towards Russia from the population from that point forward, especially for those who were in the Nazi faction, because most of the ones that were the Nazis in Ukraine never really saw much time in jail or prison or anything like that after the war. They just went about their lives in private and whatnot. But obviously they stayed in power behind the scenes that whole entire time in politics and in business. They were the heads of state then, and they remained the heads of state after in business and whatnot.
But back then, Japan was our enemy. Germany was our enemy. They're our closest allies today, and Italy, Mussolini. Yeah, today they're our closest allies.
I remember Russia, but here we fought with Russia. Russia actually helped. Russia
they were
helped
our friend
in 1776. They did a blockade, a naval blockade of the British to help us win our own Revolutionary War. The Tsar did. So the Tsar's Navy. So and then we fought with we fought with them in World War One. We fought with them in World War Two.
Right.
The only time there's ever been any kind of these altercations with Russia was after obviously the Bolsheviks taking it over and Tsarist Russia disappearing and the kind of Tartarian empire of old finally falling into the winds of time. But once the Bolsheviks took over, that was like a really, really frightening time. I mean, if you think that I mean, obviously, the Maoist revolution in China, you're talking about 20, 30 million people. In Russia, they were estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 million people.
Well, then there was a Cuban Missile Crisis that didn't do Russia any favors.
No, and that also could have been a total wag the dog. Nobody actually knows if there were ever any missiles there or not, or if the whole thing was just created by military intelligence and the warmongering military industrial complex salivating behind the scenes for World War III with Russia. And
by
that's
the way,
what they're doing right now. They're salivating behind the scenes, financing Ukraine as far as they can until finally some event, something pushes us over the edge into a final third war, because they think that this third war will be that one that breaks down the whole system. And we're not supposed to win the Third World War, by the way. America's supposed to lose it, and then we lose the Constitution, we lose everything, and we become as bad as it is north of the border.
Now Putin says that NATO has been encroaching towards Russia for so long that
why does NATO even exist?
Well, according to Putin, when Ukraine started courting NATO, that was the last straw, and so he, I guess, came up with this whole Nazification of Ukraine, and that's why he invaded.
I'm going back to that, because there is currently, and was for all of those years, people who were Nazi sympathizers and or actually in the Nazi party during that time period. And then you had the color revolution that occurred in 2014. I don't know all the details on that, but basically the people of Ukraine, which is majority Russian in a whole huge sweeping area of Ukraine,
southern Ukraine,
Crimea
primarily.
They voted in a pro-Russian president. Mm-hmm. And this pro-Russian president was going to say no to NATO, no to the EU, no to all of that, and start trading with everybody and say, hey, we're going to be friends with Russia. They're good business partners. They're not trying to tell us which way we should walk, which way we shouldn't walk, what we should do, how we should spend our money, what all of those kind of things that the World Bank and the IMF.
He didn't last. He got chased out.
Did our CIA have anything to do with that?
Then the color revolution occurred, and then you had a pro-US government takeover, a pro-West government, a pro-European Union government, a pro-NATO government takeover, and next thing you know, we're ramping up. Boom.
Well, that's when Crimea happened in 2014, because it was right after they chased out that pro-Russian president, right? That's when Russia invaded Crimea, 2014.
That's exactly right.
And then in 2018 or 2020, when did Zelensky come?
But
relatively recently, I think.
Yeah, that was sometime around 2018 or so. I don't know the numbers exactly, but that first guy that they had, I can't remember what his name was. But
was he democratically elected? That first guy?
The one who was pro-Russia was democratically elected. That's why they and it was gonna set that whole country on a course that was going to be totally different than what the powers that be in Europe.
Well, it would be another Belarus.
This is the way we do things, right? The CIA normally.
Yeah, this is the way we do things, and if you don't do it our way, then we're going to take over your country the hard way. And then we're going to do things our way. Next thing you know, half your country is going to be bombed back into the Stone Age. Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. Look at everywhere we touch.
There's a lot of cases of the CIA going into third world countries or other countries and establishing, kicking out the democratically elected leader and putting in the guy we like, and then causing all sorts of shit and usually a war or at least some violence that precedes it. So I'm wondering, like, what can the citizenry do to stop this forever war, to stop this idea that, hey, if it's not going to be if it's not going to be Vietnam, it's going to be if it's not going to be Korea, it's going to be Vietnam, and then we're going to go to Iraq, we're going to go to Afghanistan, we're going to go to Yemen. Now it's going to be Ukraine. We need this war for the military-industrial complex to keep profiting. Yeah. And these guys are probably, along with the bankers, part of the biggest profit makers of war. How do we, as a people of this nation, how do we stop this shit? How do we?
It's frightening.
It's frightening.
It's pretty frightening. It's pretty frightening.
I don't.
Corporations are winners too. Think of Bell Helicopter. Think of Boeing. Think of all of those companies. I mean, they make a lot of money when there's war.
I know.
Yeah. Northrop Grumman.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I say
Teledyne.
The industrial complex, all those big corporate war machine companies, even Boeing, fucking all the guys that make
Raytheon
General Dynamics, General Atomics.
What's
Halliburton? Cheney's favorite one.
Cheney's.
Old Cheney, don't go duck hunting with that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus, yeah, you end up getting shot in the face and have to apologize to him after. Hey, man, I'm so sorry that I put my face in front of your bird shot right there. It's my bad.
Those guys, Cheney and Bush and all those greedy warmongers that have run this nation for so long, I've noticed that they all look the same when they get old. They get this sort of like bottom of the sea. You ever seen that fish at the bottom of the sea?
Deep sea grouper?
Yeah, it's got these fat trousers.
Yeah, the deep sea grouper.
Give me oil, give me money, give me heroin, give me pain pills. They all fucking look like that. I don't care if it's like J.P. Morgan or Rothschild, or you can look them all up. They've got this same George W. Bush Sr. look. Remember when they pulled him out in Dallas?
I mean, can you imagine spending that many decades being just pure fucking evil? Pure greed. I mean, it would hang on you too, like an old knotted fucking tree.
Yeah. It's like Gollum. I swear, all these guys.
Totally.
Now, we're at 6:51, and there's some things we want to talk about, Corin. Some of your acting work. We want to get to some of our guests, but before that, there's something I've been just waiting to tell you. Also, back in the 1990s, Strasberg is my married name. My surname, my birth name, on my birth certificate.
That on you.
Yeah, is Tyson Parker. So obviously Parker had a lot of love for me, right? And there was a little TV show in the 90s you did with the name Parker in it. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course I do. That was one of the best times ever. Can you imagine graduating high school 2 weeks later? You're making more than $20,000 a week. On doing something that you absolutely love to do. It was one of the best graduation presents anybody could ever get.
I used to watch that religiously because I never saw any Parkers on TV, and so Parker Lewis was the first Parker I saw on TV. You used to watch the show religiously, so this is a wonderful moment for me. I just wanted to share that with you.
Who was the Parker? I mean, who was the casting director that gave you that part?
I don't recall which one it was. No, because I got the part because of a different show that I did called What's Alan Watching for CBS a number of years earlier when I was like 16 with Eddie Murphy Productions. Fran Drescher played my sister in it. Peter Michael Getz and Barbara Barry played my parents in it, and Tommy Schlamme directed it. I'm sorry. Tommy Schlamme directed it, and I can't remember which. It was some of the original creators of Saturday Night Live who did it. So anyway, my character was very similar, and Clyde Phillips, who was one of the creators of Parker Lewis, had been working over at CBS, and that was one of his favorite shows, and he couldn't understand why it never went to series. So when he finally sold, because he actually developed Parker Lewis for CBS, and they didn't pick it up, and the rights went back to him, and he ended up selling it at Fox a couple of years later. So it was actually developed and created before Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out, Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out, and then a year or so later, suddenly this is a great idea. So, but
so much better than Saved by the Bell, by the way. So much
it was
better.
an offer. They came and offered it to me, right out of the gate. I didn't have to audition for it. I didn't have to go through the normal, auditioning routine. So I don't recall who the casting director was for that. I remember Paul Ventura casting very well, because Paul Ventura he cast me in my very first audition ever that I went on in a Suzuki motorcycle commercial when I was 12 years old, and he cast me in a bunch of other commercials up through my teenage years. But that guy launched me.
Yeah, since we're sci-fi guys, who gave you the Stargate gig? Do you remember?
Stargate.
Yeah. I said Stargate. I have a little echo, and I'm a little drunk. Fuck off.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a similar situation. I didn't really. Yeah, it was. It kind of was happenstance, but I just was in the right place at the right time. I happened to be over at MGM corporate offices for something totally unrelated, and ran into the team down there and everything. Conversations kind of happened, and the next thing you know, they were calling my manager up saying, "Can you send us over some reel?" And we're going to send it up and have them check. So anyway, it was fortunately, because my auditioning, to be perfectly honest, I'm an actor that likes to prepare, and auditions can always be a little awkward, for me personally. And I don't feel that I've ever been the best auditioner, in my career. But I think I'm a quality actor. But I so it's been hit or miss for me for auditions. So I always preferred to just get the job if I could, because I knew that I would deliver. But I was always like, man, I might not give you the exact choice you want on the audition, because
I will blow the audition. You just give me this job. Trust me, I'll be great.
Like, I know the material, but I'm bad at test taking.
Yeah, exactly.
And I prefer auditioning in the old days, man, when we used to walk in and actually sit and read with casting directors. These days, it's all on tape, and we all put.
Yeah, well, that's the other way that I got my jobs, was not because of the first read that I did, but was because I got to get in there with a casting director who cared about what it was that they did for a living, and saw something special in the performance, and redirected me, and then saw, oh, he can take direction and actually do what it is we want. Let's bring him back for a callback, and then go in with the director, and then do the same thing. The same exact cycle happens. You go in there, you do the adjustments the casting director gave you. The director goes, you know what? If they don't like you, they're like, okay, thanks. But if they're like, you know what? Try it like this. Do a little, shift that. And if you do that, boom, the job is yours.
That's it. Yeah. And we used to have that opportunity.
It was great.
Yeah. That's mostly gone away these days. It still happens, but mostly they're just casting off tape a lot.
Well, listen, when I read those digital things where it says all the stuff I'm supposed to do for them, I'm supposed to do a full body shot, a zoom in, do a medium this and that. They want me on a scale. They want to see exactly how tall I am. They want to see me standing next to a midget to see if I'm really the height that I say I am. It's like, it just goes
hire another good actor off camera.
I record the fucking audition and I send it in. I'm like, if you can't watch this, I'm not going to sit here and do the hokey pokey for you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Number 3, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either. So we have some of your one of your new projects. It's called Biloxi Brews.
Blackwater Blues.
Backwater Blues. I was thinking of the Saturday Night Live movie. Backwater Blues, and this is a series that Corin Nemec is getting out on the air hopefully soon, and we've got the trailer. We're going to play it for you right now.
Oh, cool.
I'll get it back, I swear.
I know that you love this place, and you kept me and Pollux busy out here. You have to save when Dad died. And I know that you always wanted to drown in rum in this bayou, but this is about the best I can do, okay?
You, Castor Bennington?
Poppy knew who was involved in Mom's disappearance, man. It proves it right here.
I love Mom just as much as you do. But I just can't go digging in this graveyard again. I mean, hell, last time we did, it got us a long stretch in the pen.
You don't know shit about what's going on in Blackwater now. You know, you can't trust nobody in this town. Not the cops, not the cons, not the women.
Yeah, if you think for one fucking second I'm gonna let the person that's involved in our mother's disappearance skate, you're out of your goddamn mind.
And what are you gonna do about it, huh? Well, you can't even hold a job more than 2 weeks. Now you're gonna turn into some gumshoe fucking detective?
Fuck you. I'll do it myself.
Oh,
Thanks for nothing.
okay.
Like yappy fucking yard dog. Ooh, 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 ooh.
What are you gonna do with that?
Shit.
Where's the money? What money?
All we want to know is where our mother is. That's it. That's all we want to know.
You guys?
What about us guys? Huh? What about us guys, huh?
It was Big Tuna's idea. I was forced to sell comics to certain people.
You got beer in that cooler?
Bear shit in the woods?
Is it Dixie?
Pope Catholic?
All right, let me grab my jacket.
Mr. Bennington said you'd have a final payment for... Okay then, have a nice day now.
I feel like we had another actor from there, Robert Ben.
Oh, wow, yeah, Robert Ben. He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, we had him on the show a few weeks back.
Okay, cool, man. Awesome. I love that.
Are you guys
Yeah,
pitching this next year, or how close are you?
Look, man, we did it fully independent. We had a backer for it at one point, and everything was going great. And literally, I'm talking less than 3 weeks before we were supposed to go into principal photography, our primary financier backed out in a financial emergency. And so we ended up just raising whatever we could. So we were supposed to shoot a 1-hour pilot and then also have the full backing of this. It was an independent company, but that said, we ended up just shifting it up. I don't want to ever take losses like that. So we truncated it down to a half-hour pilot. We got rid of all the really complicated stuff to shoot, raised $16,000, and then put in about $10,000 of our own money between me and my business partner, Ben Easterday, and another one of our business partners, Bo Bogard, who was a producer on it as well. And then we shot our 26-minute, pilot presentation, and it's won just an absolute ton of awards at festivals all over, which is great and everything. But I got to tell you, it's just when you create something, I don't know if this is true or not, but it feels like it is, that we created this outside the system, and nobody wants to give us the time of day to sit down and look at at what we've created, what we spent our time and energy and effort on. We have a fully developed series. We have the pilot presentation already done, the proof of concept to show you. We have the full, the first, 3 seasons already totally scripted. The next 2 all beat sheeted out. So we have a 5-season arc at 8 seasons, 8 episodes per season. The short format type season stuff.
You've got 3
seasons. It's a ready to go project, and we can't get it. I can't get it to be looked at by anybody.
Well, what's crazy is not only does it seem like the world is enslaved and our attention span has been cut to 15 seconds, but the Hollywood pitch department is sort of the same way. They want to see a badass teaser, and then they want you to pitch them the show, And it's awesome that you have all that stuff. I think I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you can sell it. It looks like a fun show. Is your partner the
Jason London? Yeah, we created the show together, and then I wrote it and then produced it with Ben Easterday and
who's the actor that plays your brother or the
Jason London?
Okay, he's great.
Yeah, he's great.
So I wish you guys the best of luck, and I hope that show gets on the air. It looks fun to me.
Yeah, man, it is. It is a great one. It's just all about the Dixie mob and down there in Biloxi and them blackmail, the blackmail in the local politics and all of that, and how they've been laundering money to politicians through the illicit sales of rare comic books that suddenly end up in the hands of the politician's son or this, that, or the other, and then get sold on an online auction to to somebody. You don't know who buys it, because they have those anonymous auctions or whatever. And so all of this is all part of the mix of this and these two brothers who lost their mother, disappeared because she was the accountant for the Dixie mob, and she disappeared at one point, and they went on a hell-raising tour of the town trying to find out what happened to her. Both ended up in prison for over 10 years. And so they're recently out, and they suddenly get clues from their grandfather about her disappearance, and they're back on back on the case. So it's it's kind of like Simon and Simon, but a real redneckerish broke version.
Yeah, I love.
By the way,
go ahead.
I live in San Diego, so I love Simon and Simon because it was filmed right here in my little home city. I live in a rural part of San Diego. It's called Ramona. It's kind of in East San Diego County, and very, very. I'm the only person who doesn't drive a truck with 3 different flags in the flatbed with a pair of brass balls hanging off the tailgate. I'm the only one. I drive a Nissan Rogue. It's the only one in all of Arizona.
You have a Make America Great hat.
I wear my brass balls on the back of my boots instead of spurs, and just clank them down the street, sparking away, clanking along. Kaplack, 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 kaplack.
Yeah,
everybody knows.
There was a man from Mulgrass. His balls were made of fine brass, and in stormy weather, they both clanged together, and sparks flew out of his ass.
There you go, precisely.
Easy.
I love Limerick.
First rapper I ever listened to, actually. Love that guy.
As far as upcoming projects go, stuff that you can see as well right now is Dead Man's Hand. I co-wrote with Brian Skiba, the director. It stars Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, Jack Kilmer. It's a great Western. It's the #1 on Amazon for DVD sales right now, which is a good sign, because if people are buying it on DVD, it means they really liked it.
And we're not going to let you out of here without talking about Peter Rottentail, right? You're not going to leave here without talking about Rottentail.
Well, that goes right along with Dead Man's Hand, because Brian Skiba directed Rottentail. I produced that with him, and that was with Source Point Press as well, because Source Point Press they published the book Rottentail in the late 90s, the graphic novel, which became a big kind of runaway hit for them over the years and a cult classic. And so we turned that into a feature film. It was really hilarious and quite outrageous. That's Dead Man's Hand. And then me and Brian Skiba produced and worked on a number of films together after that, leading up to Dead Man's Hand, which is also based on a Source Point Press graphic novel called No Rest for the Wicked. So it's kind of cool to see the independent graphic novel world having some movies out, even if they're done on an independent scale. They actually have some really, really great stories. I'm big into the graphic novel thing, or at least I used to be, not so much anymore. But there's just some incredible storytelling in some of the graphic
novels are like drugs. If you get into comic books and you start buying graphic novels, you'll find yourself every Wednesday coming to the comic book shop, and you'll spend like $500, and you'll be like, "What am I doing with all my money buying these graphic novels?" It's really like an addiction. It really is.
Don't get into manga.
I was gonna say Shonen Jump, Shonen Jump, manga. I was all into Japanese animation. I still watch Toonami every Saturday night because who doesn't love?
Hey, I'll watch the original Robotech from the early '80s.
I love Robotech. Oh, Dragon Ball is my favorite. Dragon Ball Z. Love it.
Who mentioned
good stuff.
manga? God damn it! All right,
Manga.
but
Love it.
let's also talk about a little bit of your painting, man. Are you still painting? Are you still hitting the
Yeah,
street?
man. Yeah. I just was actually working on something in my garage just the other day, a stencil. But I don't paint as much as probably I would like to right now. In this area, there's only really one place I kind of know of where I can go and paint and not be, harassed or that. And it just gets old to paint in the same place all the time. And I don't really, since I'm not really getting up in the streets as much as I used to, I haven't really gravitated towards the local graffiti art scene here in the Tampa area and gotten with some of the local graffiti writers to find out, where the train yards and the abandoned buildings at.
Yeah. Where were you doing most of that? In Texas, or where were you doing?
Yeah, I had a bunch of places. Where I lived in Texas, in Spring, Texas, there was loads of abandoned places out where now there really isn't because everything's all built up. But there was a bunch of abandoned barns. There was some old river washes. There was train bridges that no one could see you in. That you could go on. And there was there was an abandoned strip club. That was a great place to paint.
Yeah, and I don't want to ask you on a public forum, but you have like a secret name that you tag under or that you put your art under?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go on to my Instagram site for my graffiti art, it's the 169 THE and then the numbers 1, 6, and 9, and you can see a lot of my art. This was done in Biloxi underneath a train bridge. That's the Biloxi Bridge over there to the left.
Oh, wait! You did that?
Yeah. Dude, Corin's a badass.
Oh my God! Look at that.
Yeah, he's been doing art on the streets for a long time, man.
Yeah, since 1984, 85 is when I first started painting.
That's amazing. My God, I knew you were an actor. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's a fight. That was in my backyard in Spring, Texas. I built a graffiti wall back there. So I could just paint.
Who is that?
That's Fife Dog from Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, right on. Love Tribe.
Yeah, I painted that around the time he passed away.
Right on.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was also in the backyard.
I see. You've got that Japanese animation style there. Love it.
Yeah, it's the 7 Deadly Sins. Those are the characters from it. But that's a giant one I did in Flint, Michigan, for the Flint Public Arts Foundation last year. That thing is gigantic. I loved painting that. It's just so big, it was ridiculous,
Yeah,
that scale is when it gets really fun.
You could do some of those Adult Swim bumpers, Have you seen those?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
When you do a piece that large, do you do a small sketch and then just blow it up? And so you're just painting squares?
On that particular one, because that style of turning my letters into characters, that was sort of like my trademark thing that I've been doing for quite a long time. So I can do that with my eyes closed, and then I can just like put hair, put hats on them, or give them arms, or give them legs, or whatever. But the same basic letter is how each one, it's always almost the same.
So you've been painting like that since the first time you hallucinated, and it just
yeah. So that big huge wall, I really sketched it out with a paint roller. So I sketched the letters out really big with a paint roller, so I can get to see the scaling right and make sure that it's all scaled appropriately. That one letter isn't like smaller, another one bigger, and all that weird stuff that can happen. But
my dad spent a lot of his life as a sign painter too. I've painted quite a bit too.
Right on, man.
Painting
It's
as
a
much
great
as
outlet.
But
before we bring on all the people that want to talk to you, I do have a text request.
It's going so late.
I have a text request for somebody who couldn't be here. His name is Travis, really good friend of mine. He had a question for you. He's not live, so we couldn't ask. He wanted to know, how has being an actor, being in the limelight, changed you, both for the good and for the bad? Like what's the good part of it? What's the thing you love about it? And then what's some of the bad stuff that
That's a
comes along
loaded
with that.
question right there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I mean, the arts and entertainment world or scene is it's an interesting scene, you know, because it's a scene that's unnervingly flexible in dark directions if you choose to go that way, you
Dark
know.
or light, right?
Yeah. I mean, and there's there's an endless, bottomless pit out there of sadism and darkness and all of that the entertainment business, is obviously has some associations with. And you're talking about a thin tier of people. I see a lot in the conspiracy theories and all of that. They sort of generalize Hollywood and everybody, and they make it seem like all of Hollywood are these satanic pedophiles and from hell and all of this. And it's like, listen,
They're
dude,
there. Don't be
you give
wrong.
me.
They're there. It's not the majority.
That's just it. Is I was going to say is like, if you give me any big business anywhere in the world, and you say let's filter through all of the people in that company and see what comes out at the end. When you shake the tree on any big company, you're going to find some really rotten fruit in that tree.
Yeah,
So
of
the main part for me was doing my best to, like, for instance, I never accepted an invitation to the Playboy Mansion. I had bunch of my buddies were going there. I had gotten invited there at least 6 times, official invites through my publicist and whatnot and everything. And I'm like, listen, Hollywood is already wild enough. It's already wild. My life is already wild. Like, if I go and open those kind of doors, I don't know what's on the other side of those doors. I don't know what kind of crazy shit might be, that I may go into agreement with or not, or be aghast by, or be caught up in, so I was like, I'm not even going to go through the door. I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to say no. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to smoke a bowl at my house. I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch a Pink Panther movie for the 38th time, you know what I mean? And laugh at Peter Sellers. Or The Party. That was another one I used to love to watch, the movie The Party. And I'm gonna kick it with my homies. I'm gonna go paint a wall. I'm gonna go. So in many ways, I kind of put myself at a disadvantage in Hollywood in some respects, because at a certain point, at a very young age, I realized that the PR game, the fame game, they can equal a lot of money and a huge career, but it's a game you have to play. You have to have the publicist. You have to deal with all of the people in your ear telling you what to say, how to think, what to wear, where to go, who to go on a date with. I mean, listen, there was numerous dates that I went on that were in the picks and pans when I was a teenager that were 100% set up by the publicist.
Yeah,
Nothing organic about it. You know what I'm saying? So, there's a lot of facade going on, and it just really... It started taking me away from why I started acting in the first place, that childlike enthusiasm for the pretend and being engaged in the pretend. Because when you're engaged in the pretend, it's the purely aesthetic band. It's the aesthetic wavelength of consciousness. And that's the closest you're going to get to to absolute creation in the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. As you descend through the 4 worlds of emanation, creation, formation, and action, creation is the one right before emanation, which is God consciousness coming into the consciousness of mankind. So,
and there's the joy of play, right?
That aesthetic band, that wavelength that we get to enjoy when we're doing creative things, that's when you're vibrating just below God consciousness. I mean? You don't have to be smart. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to be intelligent on any kind of particular subject. You can experience that wavelength and that bandwidth just by getting in touch with your own internal creative nature.
There's definitely a joy in play, right? A joy in play.
A joy
in pretending to be it. Yeah.
And as far as filmmaking goes, I've always enjoyed the idea that, and I've always had a big pet peeve because people will say they will equate acting to lying. And I've always hated that when people say, how do we know if you're telling the truth because you're a good actor? And I've been like, we spend all day trying to get to the truth of this scene.
I just look at them right in the face. I go, you'll never know.
You'll never know. You'll never know. Yeah, but we really try to put truth on the screen. We try to create a moment of real life for people to experience. It's not a lie. It's the exact opposite.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, there's been a couple of movies that I've been in where, in all honesty, my performance was a lie because I did not want to be in the movie playing the character I was playing, but was doing it because I needed the money. So I never phone anything in, but I can guarantee you, I was like, oh fuck, I'm in this thing. But that said, I always enjoy myself no matter what, even if it's in Dracano or Dragon Wasps or Sand Sharks or Raging Sharks or SS Doom Trooper or Robo-Croc or I'm sure I'm forgetting Sea Beast, all the different creatures that I have battled in my life. My lord, if the New World Order is on that list, I think I've handled them all.
Well, Corin Nemec is the right person to do that. Let's get to some callers.
Yeah, let's get to some callers. Speaking of, I just did a movie a couple of years ago called Cross Wars, and it was all the guys, all the guys, we know them. Brian Austin Green, Vinnie Jones, Danny Trejo, and a bunch of other people. And it was the worst movie in the world, but I got to play the main villain. So I went, you know what? I'm going to throw everything at this. I don't care how bad this movie is going to be. I'm going to throw everything at it. And I remember Brian and Trejo and other guys talking to the first AD, like, does he know this movie is like a phone-in movie?
Nothing's a phone-in, man. Nothing's a phone-in.
That's why I like
a phone-in. I've never phoned anything in. I might not be excited about the movie I'm doing, but I will bring as much as I can to it and make it the best piece of shit that it can possibly be.
Right on. I'm with you. And so is a guy named Nick Cage, who I have a big Nick got that, the IRS shot him up the ass.
Yeah.
And went and did so many bad films, but every time he did, he threw himself at those parts. And
he went to the Michael Caine school of acting as well, where Michael Caine said, they asked him how his career lasted long and everything. He said, because he's never said no to a job.
Yeah, I've never said
he's like, my job as an actor is to act. What am I what am I doing walking around in this world telling people I'm an actor if I'm not acting? So, he just said, never say no. And if you keep doing good work, even in films that you wouldn't normally do, if you keep doing good work, those people you work with might do a better film next time, or they'll hire you again, even if it's another piece of,
even if it's a piece of shit, you come off looking good.
You'll keep working, and somehow, some way, something will come out that will put you back in some type of situation where people go, oh, I remember that guy. I really like him. Let's start watching his movies again.
Michael Caine has been in everything from Shakespeare to Batman. Come on.
And he said when he won his Oscar, he was like, oh, all the shit I've done, I'm so lucky to get to hold this. So did this recent woman that was in that wonderful sci-fi movie that won Best Actress this year. Who did all the genre films.
I didn't watch the awards.
It was a fantastic movie. It was everything everywhere all at once. Jamie Lee Curtis won the Oscar this year.
Oh, okay.
And she's a horror genre scream queen. So it was like, oh yeah, go get it.
That's great.
All right. So let's, we're going way over time. So let's get a couple of callers in here and then we'll say goodbye. Hey, is Katie up first?
First up, we have Dave, looks like.
Dave Hildebrand.
All right. Hey,
Hello.
Dave.
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you, man.
You're welcome. So I got a few questions that are kind of multi-pronged. Your first appearance in Stargate SG-1 Meridian, where you played... Well, I just blanked on the character's name all of a sudden.
Jonas
Quinn. I've been drinking too tonight, so yay.
Don't worry.
But... say at first the character was like really hesitant into releasing information to the SG-1 team, and then something happened where he had a reversal, where I'm thinking with what's going on with politics nowadays, do you see kind of some parallels to what Jonas was going through back then? And at that time, did you know that you were going to be coming back for season 6?
I mean, I knew that season 6 was on the line based on my performance and how well I got along with everybody when I shot the final episode of season 5. So that was very stressful. As far as any relevance to current times and any strange sort of oddities, I would say that in the in Stargate universe, my home of Kelowna was destroyed, and there's a massive fire in Canada destroying Kelowna right now,
Oh wow.
which I find very creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just moved from that region myself.
There's
so I
nothing
don't
behind that. I'm just
understand
saying it was a weird thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not saying that there's absolutely nothing behind that. Of course, there's zero correlation between the two, except that it's just weird. I'm like, God, that's weird. That's creepy. But that's how they named that's how they got a lot of the names for Stargate. Was they would just look at a map of Canada and just point their finger to somewhere and like go, oh, what's the closest weird name town? And they'd go with that. So it isn't the first time they've named a destroyed planet after a town in Canada, but it is strange.
Yeah,
God bless and thank everybody up there as well. By the way, if anybody's in Canada, there's some crazy shit going on. So I'm praying.
Then of course there's the popular meme. Every planet looks a lot like Canada.
Yes, it does.
But the second question,
that's true. Actually, that's actually true. That's universally true across the cosmos.
yeah.
Hey.
My second question is like kind of like Tyson kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I actually just watched Rotten Tail this afternoon before the show, and as many know, like I don't do horror that much, but I didn't realize how comedic it actually was.
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's a horror comedy.
Yeah, so it's like I don't do blood very well, but I mean, I was just like, wow, this is.
Well, it was outrageous. Yeah, it was like overkill on the blood. So it became like, instead of gross, it was like hilarity. You know, it was hilarious levels of blood splatter, you know.
Kind of Kill Bill style.
Wait a second. Someone hook up the host. When did Cottontail come out? What's Cottontail?
Rotten Tail.
Rotten Tail.
It came out in 2015, maybe?
2018.
2018? Oh, 2018? Jeez. Huh.
Yeah, I was saying, how much time did you have to spend in the makeup chair when they made you into Rotten
Hour
Tail?
and 45 minutes every morning.
Oh,
Hour and 15 minutes to get it off.
It's getting it off.
The truth.
Yeah, it's getting it off. That's the crappy part. When they paint it on, it's not so bad. You just kind of kick back in the chair, but when they start with
all the alcohol and the rubbing out,
I have to. Yeah, I have never been.
By day 5, your face is just like having an acid peel and stuff from so much cleaning fluids and glue all over it.
I have never been in the business, but Manu, bless his heart, asked me to come up to Hollywood for the weekend to be a Zombot. So all this makeup piled on me, right? I'm not an actor. I've never done this before. So, I'm sitting in the chair for an hour and a half getting the makeup. That's fine. But at the end of the day, oh my God, nobody knows how hard it is to take this shit off. I mean, geez.
And nobody.
Brand new experience.
And a lot of these makeup artists also, they don't care either. They'll just rip that shit off your face. Is this Rotten Tail? Oh, my phone just died. Lovely. No, is this it?
Yeah.
Yeah, check that out, everybody.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna go
watch.
That's
the same director as Dead Man's Hand. Brian
cool. It's funny because we run in the same circles back in the day. Dead Man's Hand. You got who was that? Who was, man? I'm a little bit too buzzed now. Dorf and the other guy, but
Cole Hauser.
Yeah, Cole Hauser, man. I used to see you guys in auditions all the time.
Yeah, me and Steven Dorff were in Terrence Hines' acting class together when we were 14, 15 years old for several years. Me and old Dorff. That's pretty funny. We go way back. Cole, I never really hung out with too much. Hollywood was very cliquish. You know what I'm saying? It was. My little posse was like me and Balthazar and Davey A and Hartwell and Chucky Pacheco and sort of Rodney Harvey, rest in peace, and sort of like the derelicts of Hollywood.
I remember when Hartwell got his deal, and it was like we were. Who told me Hartwell got his deal when he blew up? That poor kid. That he had a wonderful career, but he died in that car accident from.
Mark.
Chris. Oh man.
Are you talking about?
I was in an audition with him before anybody had a name, and he was in Fast and the Furious, the blonde kid. I can't think of his
Yeah.
name.
Walker.
Yeah,
Paul Walker. Yeah, I
Paul
did one of my early commercials. I did. It's on YouTube actually. I did with Paul Walker. That was a huge tragedy. But we did a commercial together, and we were like 13, out on Catalina for Coca-Cola.
I don't mean to be the big bummer, but that's another thing about Hollywood is you meet these people and you run with them and you click with them from if they're not your friend, they're your acquaintance, and you see them out at the same places, and then all these kids die on you, and you're like, man, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. I've lost so many beautiful people.
Yeah, it's a wild place where fast lives aren't unusual.
No, that's true. Okay, so who's our next question for Corin?
It's a wild place where fast.
I just heard an echo
in your mind, Manu.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it too. It's
Up
nothing
next,
here.
we have Legacy Zach.
Hey,
Zach,
how you doing?
Zach.
What's up, y'all? So, first off, hello, Harold. I'm so
right.
glad that you survived the super flu. So, speaking of that, can you hear me?
I can
Yeah,
hear you.
there's a bit of an echo.
Manu's having a problem over there. I'm not sure what he's doing.
Somebody's watching the show with their speakers on, and we're on a delay, so that we're hearing some feedback.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, can you hear me? I'm like, okay, good. I'm just hoping my mic wasn't screwing up. So, I got a couple questions actually, considering you was on the strand. So, speaking on the stand, the COVID shenanigans and the regime that came about.
Yeah.
What do you think of what do you think? What do you think about that and what the government needed to do and not needed to do, and what could have been the better perspective on that output?
It's just that's a tough one to unpack because there's so much information about this subject that's come from so many different directions. Ultimately, when I go back and if you want to know what you do or don't do, you go back and you watch the event 201, which was put on by Gates and the WHO and a bunch of other people. That was wargaming the COVID-19 scenario only, half a year or so before it actually happened. So if you want to know what you're supposed to do during that, you go back and watch Event 201 and then realize, oh my God, that's exactly what they did. So and then the curiosity that really kills the cat is when, you find out, oh, it really did come from a laboratory in Wuhan. And even though that was where anybody with any amount of sense should have recognized that it came from, as soon as they told you that there was a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, a mere quarter mile from the wet market, my radar went up. Let me put it that way. I don't know if anybody else did, but my antenna was way up. Going, wait a second now. This wet market's been around for 1,000 years, and this thing has only been over here for 20, 15 years, and so. And then the draconian measures taken is just something unheard of, something that you've just never seen or witnessed to take advantage of a situation like that to make the people of America test subjects to your will is just bizarre to me. To back people into a corner, to force them to inoculate themselves with a substance that has zero zero evidence behind it of what it even is.
Yeah.
Could they put what's in it? Do me a list right there and the definitions of it and all of that before I just show up and say, hey, I'll take whatever you're pushing. You know what I mean? It's like that's a dangerous game in my opinion. I've always been a little reluctant when it comes to Big Brother and what they try to spoon feed me. I always have been since I was a teenager. But I will say when I went to Thailand and did the movie Operation Dumbo Drop, I did get the malaria shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I did, and I did, have a long conversation with the doctor and all of that. And he's like, listen, they've been doing this for, for decades and decades and decades and decades. Everybody's fine. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And that said, this time around, they just can't say that. There's just no one can say that, and there's just not enough. I'm not going to get into the weeds too much on it because it's such a touchy subject. But I'll just say that I'm not one to just blindly listen when somebody tells me to go. I'm going to make sure that the coast is clear and that it's in my best interest to go first.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at on that. And I think that any kind of lockdown measures or anything of that nature has far too much of a negative impact on society, culture, business, families, friendships, health, everything than it does to allow people to make their own choices and decisions as spiritual beings, God gifted on planet Earth, living inside of a human body. I can decide if I want to go into the leper colony or not. It's up to me, not you. So, I think that when it comes, when they start launching this thing again in another couple of weeks, which is what they're supposed to be doing, which oddly enough, how do we all know already that they're about to launch another COVID strain and all the shutdown measures and everything when they haven't announced it yet? Because they've already been leaking it all over the place. It's already coming. They're already trying to set the stage so that it's not too much of a shock to the system and people aren't too irate. It's like, go ahead and let us get some of our anger out now before they shut down your restaurant again, or before they shut down your coffee shop, or before they don't let you take your food truck out to the. And it's like, I watch all this going on, what they're doing, and it's like, who are they testing at the border right now? Mm-hmm. Regardless of what you think about what's going on at the border, or whether people should be allowed over or not be allowed over. If I can't go to work because I'm not vaccinated, or I can't go to work because it's shut down because of this COVID thing, but tens and tens of thousands of people can pour across the border without any of that shit and do whatever they want. Nah, man, there's something else going on, dude. I ain't behind that.
Well, on that subject, I got a book to recommend. Like this kid from Toronto, Avio Oppenheim. He has a book called The Ethics of Vaccine Passports. He's from Canada, so they got the worst of the brunt. So, I mean, that's a good book to check out. Like it's all.
This is all a push. Each stage, each step. They're going to have the collapse of the U.S. economy soon. They're going to have the collapse of the banking system, and then they're going to have us all hiding in our houses, terrified and everything. And they're going to say the only way out is through this digital currency and through this card that you're going to get, and through this new identification you get. And now what we were talking about earlier, this layer of corporate fiction that we have, that we at least have some semblance of freedom from, we suddenly won't have any freedom from. That's going to be it.
Corin, the first time that these things started coming out, it sounds like me and you were raised by similar parents. My parents were 60s generation hippies.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't trust their government. They didn't trust
100%.
About it. And the first time I saw smartphones and I started to look at them and I started to think about them, I went, I bet you they're going to use these. And they're going to track us, and they're going to find out how much money we're spending, and they're going to find out who our friends and family and everybody that we're calling. And eventually a space laser is going to hit us when we don't pay our taxes. That is literally the paranoid thought that my brain.
Hey man, no, what they'll do is they'll just shut down your phone and you'll be back in the Stone Age without it. You know what I mean? They'll just shut down your access to everything. You won't be able to get on public transportation. You won't be able to walk into a grocery store. You won't be able to buy, sell. It's the number of the beast. And I'm not even religious. But you know what I'm saying? But it really, when you look at it, it's some mark of the beast type shit.
It's crazy. I feel completely overwhelmed and enslaved by this machine.
Yeah, I got to put this thing aside. I mean, I'm more addicted to the podcasts and things like that I'm into than I am to the mind-numbing scrolling. And I at least follow on Instagram. I follow some interestingly enough artist sites and history sites and alternative history sites and stuff, and spiritual sites and stuff. So when I'm on my scroll, I'm getting something here. I'm getting something,
Yeah. It's too late to get into this, but I've been so deep into all the UFO data and the UAP data that's come out over the last couple of years, because I knew my government was like in total control and the elites were in control. But the fact that they might have, not the fact, the theory that they might have been working with the aliens since Eisenhower to control us with this shit that they traded for us and started abducting us. Crazy fucking shit. I didn't want to go that deep in this episode, and I'll just leave it there. Zach, did you have any more questions for Corin? Because
we're doing the doggy thing, I think.
Pussy is adorable.
I do have one more question though. Like,
what's that?
Have you ever read or heard of Lysander Spooner and
come on, come on.
Of what?
Lysander Spooner.
Yeah, with his essays, No Treason, it's like a critique on the Constitution.
He was calling out shit. Yeah,
he was calling like this like mid 19th century, and one thing that came about is like in a famous quote, and I paraphrase if I say it wrong, but the Constitution has no real authority. I mean, it's essentially never really established anything of authority. It's just a piece of paper. It's
it does though. It's the agreement that we all have that does it. You know, if you look at any country on planet Earth, any civilization, anything that's ever happened, it's all done through agreement, and through that agreement, you know, the magic happens. You have to cast the spell first, and in order for the spell to take root, and the spell can't take root unless you don't have believers in the spell. And the Constitution is a protection spell for humanity against the evils and wicked ways of the aristocracy across the seas, you know, that wanted to enslave everybody and make us a serfdom. And now we're right there where they want.
We have a dumb. Here's the problem. Hold on. We have a dumbed down America at this point. We have a really dumbed down America that doesn't even know how to, fight with our constitutional rights. I know people. In fact, my father was the victim of illegal search and seizure and got off because of the Constitution of this state. And a lot of people got to eat a lot of mushrooms and have spiritual centeredness because he got off on illegal search and seizure. He's in the Constitution. So you gotta learn how, it's not like it's this document that's going to magically protect you. But you have to use it. And you have to fight because they're going to lock you up. They're going to send you to jail. They're going to charge you with 17 things instead of one. They're going to do all the things that they can do to make you plead guilty to something you're not guilty of. But the Constitution is the only thing that we can fall back on to say, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to fight this.
Well, wouldn't that be more of the Bill of Rights then and establish
in tandem? One doesn't work without the other.
Yeah, I mean the way that I've read like Patrick Newman's like cronyism and his consistent concisement on the Constitution, the history of it, and it sounds more like the Constitution itself is more centralization, but the anti-federalists, the real federalists, were the ones that they were finally able by like 1789, 90. Able to construct the Bill of Rights to kind of put in the protections that the Constitution doesn't establish, because it is somewhat of a centralized document, and that brings in mercantilism and the whole Hamiltonian doctrine of
well, when we first started the show, Zach, Corin said something about oh shit, I just fucking brain farted. That's when you first started the show, you said something about
we're talking about like the two different. We got the corporate fiction that's America today, and then we have what the real America is, and that's all tied in through the Uniform Commercial Code and legalese, and us going into contractual agreements that we are so-called persons, which in the Black's Law Dictionary is not quite defined as a living, breathing, sentient being. So it's the legal jargon. They play this game with us, and that's why I mentioned that the Constitution, if you look at it in like black magic and white magic, You know, you can cast a spell, a shield. It has to be written down. It has to be actualized. People have to agree on it. And then through that, you suddenly have this shield that has protected us for this many hundreds of years, even though we're teetering on the edge of losing it all. You know, we have a chance not to. And the only reason why we have a chance not to lose it is because we have it in the first place, which was not supposed to happen. Let me tell you something. America was not supposed to be America. It was not supposed to happen. It was supposed to be just another branch of the
colony of England
aristocracy and their control and everything else. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been a path of blood, spread from one end of this country to the other in order for it to become what it is today. And I'm sure there's some karmic retribution, allowed for that. But also the karmic retribution, if America stops existing altogether for the world, is going to be the darkest times anyone could ever imagine.
And the corporation of the United States doesn't give a flying fuck about
No, it doesn't. It's a corporation.
Or the Constitution. But the people of America, I believe, still do. And it's about
100%.
organizing us. It's about doing shows like this. It's about keeping the conversation open. It's about educating people. And it's about us fighting for our rights, because they're definitely.
Well, if we don't comply across the board, if people just ignore them, if they say, hey, we're passing this new mandate, what the fuck is a mandate? Is that a law? Can I get arrested? What is a mandate? Get out of here.
I didn't sign shit.
Get out of here with that. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't sign shit.
That's another.
I didn't sign shit.
Spinner would argue that voting was basically another act of aggression. So if we just don't participate in the system, right? I mean, maybe we can fix it through our.
There's a way to create a system outside of the system. It just we've been so used to working within it the way we have. But with Bitcoin, how Bitcoin was launched when it was, Bitcoin, from my understanding of research, Bitcoin was launched when it was way ahead of time as a buffer against the World Bank and the new digital currency that's coming out, because the writing was on the wall for these tech guys a long time ago, and they saw where it was going, and they knew if they didn't create this portal of freedom then that the digital currency, when it landed, people wouldn't know what it was yet. They wouldn't understand it. It was just that it was supposed to be just thrust upon us out of nowhere. But some smart and altruistic dudes, whoever they may be, launched Bitcoin way ahead of the game and blew their cover for, because this whole digital currency thing was supposed to be just, oh, hey, look what we got, guys. Look what we came up with, and we weren't supposed to know about it.
And my theory is they're going to crush Bitcoin and it's going to collapse, and everything's going to go to that USD dollar, and well,
BRICS now. No, but you have the BRICS currency now, which is the currency that is a union of nations that want to do a gold-backed trade currency that would basically, the rest of whatever is left of the US dollar would be completely gone once that's launched, because they want to launch it specifically backed by gold and silver, and in a way where you're going to probably be dealing with some pretty fair trade deals with these countries that are involved in it, and that paradigm shift. I think that as more countries start to realize that there is another system, besides the one that's being forced on us, I think a domino effect can start happening, and that as they're implementing, this system, it'll be falling apart at the exact same time. Similar to kind of what happened with the whole COVID thing and all that. It ran out of steam, and they had to kind of just go, forget about it.
Yeah.
And now suddenly they're like, oh, wait a second, did we say forget about it? No. I was saying, like, facetiously, like, forget about it. It'll be back later. Don't forget about it now. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
We got two more callers that would like to get in.
Hey, nice
we
to meet
have
you, Legacy. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Zach.
We've got Katie, and then Corey. Then we got Katie. Corey was a fellow Zombot. She's one of the few that I've stayed in touch with. Believe it or not, she had to shave her head bald. She had to shave her head bald for it.
Hey, speaking of, okay, so Star Crew is a TV show that I've been working on for 5 years. It's
Yes.
basically Galaxy Quest meets Shaun of the Dead. It's a wonderful story about how storytellers create the universe and actors meet their own selves, and zombies and space adventure and fun.
Nice.
And then a lot of these fans came in and played Zombots, and they were all cool enough to shave their heads, and we had this beautiful fucking makeup.
That's
And
cool. That's
the,
cool.
the pilot will be ready in April, and Corin has been signed onto this thing from the get-go.
Yeah.
So let's cross our fingers, everybody, for an April
Absolutely.
pitch. Maybe we'll have a new show on the air. Corey, thanks for doing that for us. So what's your question?
It's been my pleasure. You know, I
fun.
know you know, but I've never met Corin in person. But, you know, I got to say that with everything that we've been discussing, that, you know, our imagination has a lot to do with the way that we view things in life. And just the way that I've learned things from you, Corin, and you, Manu, it helps us to develop our imagination. And that is what life is about, is our imagination.
It's where it all starts. That's for sure.
Exactly. And, you know, we've been discussing politics. We've been discussing the future. We've been discussing science. We've been discussing fantasy. But it's the way that we look on things. It's the way we develop our character. It's the way that we see things for our future. It defines us all.
Our point of view, you mean, and how you can change it to the positive and work for a positive
Yeah,
outcome.
it's totally malleable. I mean, that's what most people don't realize is they become so solidified in their point of view and in who they think they are as a personality. I mean, the one thing that I have certainly learned as an actor and from my great teacher Manu Tupo, oddly enough, he has your same name, and then my son's middle name is Manu,
I
named
didn't know
after
you
my
took
teacher, Manu
classes
Tupo.
from Tupo. That's cool.
Yeah, for years I studied with him until he passed away. I was very close with him.
That's awesome.
And you know, the understanding that I came to after all of those years, and then spiritual quests and everything else, is that, you know, that as an actor I get to enjoy not being me.
Right.
I get to enjoy putting the me that I know away in a box and forget about me and become whoever this character is and live the life of this character, for better or for worse, for that character, you know, through thick and thin for that character, whether I'm being chased by a giant crocodile or, you know, or being licked by a little corgi over here. But that said, you know, what I realized is that, oh, this whole thing can be put away.
Right.
It can all be put away. All of this experience that I've had, everything that makes me who I think I am, everything that is so solidified in my memory of what I was taught, how I grew up, what economic strata I grew up in, what religious way did I grow up, all of that is total bullshit. I'm just a spiritual being who has access to a mind, and that mind is a blank canvas for me to paint and create and do whatever I want with in this life and this universe and this reality for this time period that I'm in this body. Okay, great. But then you get trapped in this game that they've set up for us that equals bills, taxes, all the rules, regulations, legal things, all da. Next thing you know, you don't have time in the day for a creative thought. And that's the way the system is rigged. It's rigged specifically to keep the average person from ever being able to think creatively. Because as soon as you start thinking creatively, you start thinking spiritually. When you start thinking spiritually, you start realizing who you really are. When you realize who you really are, nobody can convince you you're anybody else other than that. And then once you realize that, you can't be lied to anymore. You can't be controlled anymore. Forget it. Nobody's going to pull the wool over your eyes. You're going to look at the moon landing and you're going to question it. You're going to go, how did that tin can with duct tape and some fishing rod, a fishing rod attached to it, get up through the vacuum of space with this thin metal in the vacuum of space? And how'd they get out that tiny door with that big backpack on it? Where was that Land Rover? I'm not saying they didn't go or not. I'm just saying, look at it. I just look at things and I go, all right, they told me they went. I'm going to accept that they said that they went. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie to myself and say, look at that footage. That looks fake as shit.
No, absolutely. Always question authority. I sat next to Buzz Aldrin for about 3 hours and drilled him on his whole, episode going to the moon there. Pretty sure he went. But he also told me all this cool shit, like aliens followed him there and followed him back, and he saw the ships. And he said him and Nichelle Nichols were about to go to NASA and argue for building for getting us to Mars and actually being multi-planetary, so that the aliens would start talking to us more, because they haven't approached us as much as he thought they should. This is fucking Buzz Aldrin, the guy that went to the moon, right?
Right.
So I don't think he would bullshit me like that at a 3-hour dinner for just shits and giggles. So I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have, because I consider myself like a skeptic, so I kind of remain in that gray zone a lot in order just to kind of, for my own personal sanity.
I don't believe or not believe. So anything. I just find it all very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like so I wouldn't say that that Buzz Aldrin is lying or not or anything else. I would say that like the overall NASA alien intervention and all of this other stuff, I think a lot of it is psyop. I think a lot of it is our own technology, and a lot of it is stuff that the human race is up to, that can utilize that idea as a potential sort of bulwark from their own dirty deeds that they're doing, pretending to be. I don't know. These are all possibilities.
No, it's true. We've had people inside the dark ops community come out and leak that they try to stay 50 to 75 years ahead in technology without telling the public. So it absolutely could be our ships,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? So either way you slice it, the one thing that I always come back to is that either way you slice it, whether like they've been suggesting recently is that there'll be like a fake alien invasion thing, and that will be the precursor to the New World Order and all this other stuff, or even if it's a real alien invasion, the net results are the same. So it's how do we react to these types of events, should they occur, if they occur, when they occur. It's like, just like if we've been given this new heads up about what's going to happen with this new variant, and that they're about to bring all the mandates back and all this other stuff. There's already been whisperings about it. So when it happens, what are we really going to do? Are people going to suddenly go, okay, I guess I'll just put my mask back on and go back around and look at everybody like I'm terrified? Get away from me! Oh my God, you breathed on me!
Weren't these vaccines what they told us, right? New technology, mRNA, right? Weren't they supposed to?
Fuck that, dude. Listen, the more I learn about it, the freakier it gets. The more I learn about mRNA and that thing, that rabbit hole, I had to stop, dude. I didn't get the shot, and that's nothing here nor there. I just wanted to wait. I wanted to wait and let things shake out. I didn't want to panic. Make a decision in a moment of fear and this and pressure from my family and friends or this, that, the other. Listen, I was a pariah when I didn't get that shot. I was an absolute pariah. I was a pariah to the family. I wasn't invited to Christmas. I couldn't go and stay with my family out in California. I couldn't be around people. I mean, I was like, yo, what is this? And then sure enough, half a year later, every single person who got the shot has COVID. I'm like, well, there you go. I think I'm going to pass on this one.
Wait a second. So I've had 5 of the shots. You've never gotten it?
No.
And have you gotten COVID?
No, absolutely not. I don't get sick.
Same.
I don't get sick, dude. I refuse sickness. The only sickness I ever got was the booze flu. Otherwise, I just absolutely refuse sickness. I get, unless it's a bacterial infection from some bad tuna, you know what I'm saying? I'm not getting sick.
Well, there was this one shady guy I hooked up with, and I did get a case of the crotch crickets, but that was only once.
Yeah, well, that's not actually considered.
That was in the Bible,
That's a parasite.
Crotch crickets, yeah, that's First Corinthians, I believe.
It's in Revelation. It's one of the final signs.
Guys, I love hosting the show, and I love having our special guest on. He's been kind enough to stick with us for 2 hours, so let's get one more guest in. And
okay, cool, man.
Okay,
all the way from England, we have Katie.
And as we bring on Katie,
I
want to say one thing real quick. We've had Chris try to get in several times with no luck. So if everybody here could unmute, if we can give a what's up to Chris.
Yeah,
we gotta have it in our show.
What's up?
All right. Sorry, Chris. We'll get you in next time. Go ahead, Katie.
Hello, good morning.
Hi. Good.
Yeah, I've got two questions for you, Corin, if that's okay. The first one is, you went from playing a bit of a weirdo with a psychotic look in his eyes on Smallville to having a regular part on SG-1. And Jonas is so sweet and intelligent and like on the level. How do you go from such extremes within different roles, from like crazy psycho to like really sweet? How do
Yeah, I
you
mean, I'm
get into
on darker notes. I mean, playing Ted Bundy in American Icon, and playing Richard Speck, who was a mass killer in the '60s, playing that character as well, and other darker roles. It's not that they're the challenge as an actor is, I mean, I have to have a through line of morality and personal ethics and integrity, and within that, as the artist, I have to also be able to determine, okay, within the context of what are my morals, what are my personal ethics. Well, I'm playing Ted Bundy. This guy had sex with dead bodies. You know what I'm saying? This guy was a serial killer. He was a disgusting, deviant, sociopathic human being who was actually totally sane. There wasn't a crazy thought in that mind's head, and that's what scared me to death about him when I was researching playing the character, was that he wasn't crazy. I could play Richard Speck easy because he was crazy as a loon. And it's easy to justify why someone behaves that way when they're batshit crazy, addicted to speed, and total alcoholics, and were completely abused as a child, and were just not right in the head. I can go, okay, let me play this character, and it becomes fun. Playing Ted Bundy after day 3, I was so sick of being that guy, I could scream. You know what I mean? And I couldn't wait to not play that character any longer. But as an actor, the interesting part, I think, that obviously, Manu can attest, is having an opportunity to try something new, to figure out, what can be different about this. Because I don't want to say it's like a George Clooney effect where every single role you do is the same, but you're just in a different outfit and in a different situation, but you're always George Clooney.
That's the movie star effect.
And then you have Daniel Day-Lewis, and you go, oh my God, this guy is like, he's a chameleon, or other actors of that ilk. And there's plenty of them, I'm not saying that I would qualify myself as either one of those actors. I'm just me, but I think that there's a deeper opportunity when it comes to creating a character, if you choose to take the deeper opportunity. If you choose to take the safe path, there can be a really solid, good performance that just works, and everybody's happy, and everybody high fives at the end of the shoot day, and everybody goes home. But there's also should be some element of danger in there, and unpredictability, and that even in doing comedy, that there's got to be, if you're not totally loose, and if you're just married to whatever's on the script, you're going to miss an opportunity to probably do a great pratfall, or to have something funny really happen. Or if it's like, point is you never cut the scene. As an actor, you don't cut the scene. You let the director cut the scene. You know what I mean? You keep rolling with the punches until someone says cut, or until some blood starts flying around that's not supposed to be there.
I don't remember actors being able to say cut until this whole new digital revolution over the last 25 years. When I was trained, and when we started, we were shooting on film. That shit was expensive, and we stayed acting until the director said cut. We couldn't go cut. Sorry, I messed up. Everybody, we weren't in charge of that shit. We were trained.
I still don't do that. You still don't guess you're doing that.
But indie films all the time now, I'll find actors saying cutting the camera themselves, and I'll be like, "That's not your job. We just have." I won't say
if I need a second. If they're rolling and I need a second, I won't say cut. I'll say, "Give me a moment." I'll turn and do whatever I got to do to get back to where we were at. but if they yell cut, if I say just give me a moment and let me get back into the space and then go again, I'm not going to cut it. But if they say cut, I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, all right.
Yeah, the director said cut. I can stop trying now.
I can breathe.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question, I think it's just I just find it fun. I have a great movie coming out, hopefully before the end of the year, called Place of Bones, starring opposite Heather Graham and Tom Hopper, and it's a thriller set in the late 1800s, 1876, and it's a fantastic piece, and I have just such a great character in that. I mean, I'm not saying the character is a great opportunity. It was a great opportunity for me to become a very, very well-rounded, really interesting, multi-dimensional character that I'm most excited about. So when that comes out, I think that there'll be hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel here.
Cool. Audrey Cummings directed.
Yeah, she's great. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to keep a lookout for that movie and give it a watch.
And hey, I'm going to comment a little bit on what you were talking about. I think, playing villains, I'm with you too. When the villain's written well and the villain has a reason for being exactly how villainous he is and how dark he is, I always feel better about the role. If the villain's written great, people always ask me, like, is it more fun playing villains or is it more fun playing heroes or leading men or whatever? I always say whatever part's written better, whatever part's the most interesting.
True.
Yeah.
It could be misery. It could be a misery playing the villain if it's not written well.
Yeah, if the villain's not written well at all, it's just taglines and
usually the villains are a lot more
snarls and taglines.
Yeah, just horrible shit. Like that great actor who I just love to death. I can't think of his name, but the Banshees of Inisherin is the recent film that he was in. When he played that terrible villain in the what's it called movie? Come on, man, the lawyer with the fucking Marvel guy. Oh, come on! He played Bullseye in that. Oh man, that pisses me off. I hate being okay, well, anyway, it was a terribly written Marvel villain, and you've got this great actor doing these horrible taglines like Bullseye. Stop it. But when a villain's written with a real reason to be the way he is,
yeah.
And you mentioned Bundy. I think Bundy was like a total misogynist. He hated women. He had reasons for all his psycho. I know he wasn't crazy, but he must have had experience.
Hey, listen, when his parents caught him killing little furry animals he was catching in the backyard, and like not just killing them but torturing them to death, they should have known that there's something off here. Or maybe he learned it from his parents. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah, you never know. But at least having a reason to be as villainous as you are. Like, I always love the villains that actually have a reason that you can argue for.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of see where he's coming from. Like, you think of Khan in Star Trek is what I think of always, because these were his friends, these were his people. He's trying to save his people. That you've killed my brothers, my sisters. Those kind of villains are always the fun ones to play. But yeah, everything's a challenge and everything's fun. What's your second question? And then we'll end the show.
About Venice High.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've literally just ordered that and it sounds absolutely brilliant. I was wondering if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Oh, cool. Well, Venice High is just a kind of dime store novel I put together. I had written a screenplay. It's written in sort of like a screenplay in its formatting, but it has all of the descriptives and content that you would expect out of a regular novel. But growing up in the 1980s in Los Angeles as a graffiti writer, me and my buddies, we lived in the poorer side of North Hollywood. And what a good looking kid, man. That's beautiful.
Atlas.
Yeah, right on.
Not until you're 18 or 21 and your father warns you about all the creepy shit in Hollywood.
That's right. Oh yeah, Venice High. So anyway, I had put it together, and I just wanted to share the story because I felt the story. For me, growing up as a graffiti writer in North Hollywood and kind of the crappier neighborhoods, me and my friends, I was making money as a young actor, and not that my family had any money because they didn't, but I was starting to make money, so I could shuck and jive and do my thing. But the point is that we used to hang out with these girls that went to like Westlake School for Girls or Beverly Hills High or whatever, and we were like these little like street urchins from North Hollywood, going up to these Beverly Hills parties and pulling up in our beat up VW that's lowered that backfires every time you stop it, and everybody's laughing at you when you get out, and the rich boys are trying to be all tough, like, hey, what are these guys doing here? And you get caught tagging on the parents' mirror in the bathroom, of their house, and it's just so I have a nostalgia for that time period because there was the romance between the kid from the hood and the girl from Beverly Hills and sort of just the trials and tribulations of for me, fortunately I had acting, but I imagined myself if all I was this graffiti head living in the streets and I never had acting, if that never crossed my path, what would my prospects be in life? And it took me to some weird places. I was like, wow, man, if I didn't have acting as a young kid, that's what saved me from really just doing a bunch of criminal shit. It was like, I was a teenager, NWA had just come out, everybody wanted to be a gangster, and it was like I was totally brainwashed by the whole culture and the world and everything. And it wasn't until I woke up with Parker Lewis one day and realized that the behavior and the dudes I'm hanging out with, even though most of them are all still my close friends today, at least the ones that aren't doing life in prison, the lifestyle that I could have chosen with the graffiti art and that kind of scene. Not the graffiti art is a bad scene, but it comes with the gang banging world and the street culture of Los Angeles and everything.
Crack was coming in right around then. Crack was fucking a prevalent.
The crack epidemic in LA was insane. The one fortunate thing about being in the hip hop scene in the 80s was that the hip hop culture internally was anti-cocaine, anti all of that. Like that was the death of the inner city. And to be a hip hop head, you had to be anti that. It was weed and brew, and that's it. Like if you went any further than that, you were like you're whack. I don't want to hang out with you. Make it, get out of here. You know what I mean? So that was a benefit. With at least that, because it did at least give me more of a point of view on drugs and the drug lifestyle and all of that as I got deeper into Hollywood, because you can rest assured that the Hollywood music scene and entertainment scene and all of that, I'm sure even today is rife with excess.
Oh, dude, I can't imagine the poor kids these days with the fentanyl and all the bath salts and whatever the hell else.
Who knows, bro?
They've got these hardcore drugs now that you try once and who knows what the fuck happens to you.
Who knows?
We were chewing bubblegum back in the day. So, Katie, thanks for your question. Corin, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, you bet, brother.
About the American Forever War and some of the things we needed to do better in this.
Yeah, let's have the forever peace, man. That's what I'm all about. Let's have the forever peace.
Yeah.
I remember this small point in time, and hey, I don't know what was going on in the Black Ops world, but I remember when George W. Bush Jr. got elected. I at least
scary time that was.
Yeah, it was, right? I remember sitting in my house and I was looking at the election and I saw him get elected, and there was this lady that was like 21 behind me, and she was a big Bush fan, and I looked at her and I started crying because I was a hippie kid. I knew what was going on, and I said, mark my words, within a year and a half we're going to be at war. And I was so fucking right. I was so right. Those Twin Towers got hit about a year later, and off we went. No. So I just want to. I appreciate your thirst for history and your knowledge a little bit about how they've enslaved us and what can we do. Leave us with a signing off. Like, what can we do? It's so hard to organize people. It's so hard to get people excited about something. It's so
absolutely.
What if we all stopped paying our income tax at one point?
Well, that's just it. In all honesty, it'd be just just saying that on this live show right now could get
I'm
you,
on the
get
list.
you audited. But I'm just saying, that's a very practical way of doing it. But how do you get everybody on the same page at the same time, ready to go in order to arrest the system? So, but it does have to start with the individual. Each individual has to come to a breaking point within themselves where they decide, listen, I'm either just going to go full on with this slave system and I'm just going to duck my head down and run and make as much money as I can within the slave system and do whatever they tell me to do, how they tell me to do it, when they tell me to do it, tweet whatever they tell me to tweet, think whatever they tell me to think, don't think whatever they tell me not to think, don't leave my 15-minute city, don't do whatever the case may be, and just go for survival. That to me sounds like hell. I'd much rather take a step back and go, you know what? I'm going to figure out another way to live my life. And if enough people do that, then you'll suddenly look around and realize, oh, we are all doing it. And there isn't even a plan. We're just waking up. So I'd say just, let's just all keep waking up.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. That's my best idea because I think, back in the day, they got pissed off over tax over a bit of tea, right? I mean, we're getting.
that was the icing on the cake. There's more to it than that.
Yeah,
that was the icing on the cake. It was that they had made a colonial script. They had outlawed it. They had made it impossible for people to buy, sell, and trade in the U.S. under their own continental script, which colonial script rather that they had. And they were, because people were too rich. They were like, how are these people getting so rich over here? They weren't taxing each other. They were creating sound currency. They were trading fairly. They weren't charging interest on loans. They weren't
no taxation without representation. That was the slogan then, right?
Yeah.
No taxation without representation.
Exactly, 100%. Don't tread on me as well.
Yeah, and back then the representatives could actually make their way up by a horse and buggy to.
Hey, you know what? If you look it up on Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin's penny that he minted, the chain coin that he put together, it says on the coin itself, on the penny, it says "Mind your business."
Mind your business.
Two things. That means two things. You mind your business, I'll mind my business. And that was genius to have on the coin, and it should have always remained.
It should have stayed
God
there.
God bless Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that his time spent in the Hellfire Club was good or not. It's up to him to decide. But he God bless him, he did good for America.
I would much prefer Mind Your Business than In God We Trust and all the Illuminati shit on the bills these days. And
it said we are one. It says we are one on one side. It says we are one on the one set, and then mind your business on the other side.
We got to have Corin back for a secret society. We got to talk about the Masons. We got to talk about the Illuminati. This will be a great show.
Yeah.
Have you back for that?
Have you done your 3 steps? Are you in?
My 3 degrees? Yeah, of course. I did all my degree work in the late 90s. I finished.
There we go. We got to have you. Okay. Corin's coming back, y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks for
joining. I had to finish my Master Mason's degree before the end times.
Yeah, right on. All right. Well, so we'll do this again.
There it is. Mind your business.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks for sticking around for an extra hour and 15 minutes for us. This
God
was
bless you all.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. I'm going to say thank you to Corin Nemec. Thank you to Corey for coming on the show. Legacy Zach, hit that subscribe button. Man, I can't even speak this at the end of the show. It's been so long. All the marketing shit. Do it. And you will be back next week, Sunday, with who's the guest next week, Cassie?
I have that right here. Our guest is Donnie the Don.
Donnie the Don. Yeah, she's going to be fun. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for having dangerous thoughts. Thanks for questioning authority. And thanks for thinking for yourself. We'll see you here next week. So, good night. Bye-bye, guys.
Peace.
Bye, guys.